Yes, you certainly did a much better job than I did at the FM Foundation. I was going out of the foundation after my 2-year stint, and you were coming in, and I think you did a spectacular job. So thank you very much for that, and thanks for getting me in here to Madrid, despite of my poor performance at IFMA Foundation. Anyway, I will spend the next 20 minutes talking about service management and why service management is so important for the FM profession. And when we talk about, as David mentioned before, getting recognition to the FM industry, I think actually service is quite at the core of what we need to do as facility managers. And when we talk about us as facility managers on the managerial level getting a recognition, let's also for a moment think about the many service employees, the thousands of frontliners that we are all hiring, that are working for us on a day-to-day level, that we also need to give them recognition, because that's equally important to attract the right people into the organization on all levels, managerial level, but definitely also on the front line. So I will spend my next 20 minutes discussing why service management is absolutely critical for the future success of facilities management, and why we all need to improve our game in this area and become real experts for our customers and for our employees, and thereby also for our own future. It's really up to ourselves to get it right. And when I look at the FM industry today, it's really become a numbers game. This could be the daily life of any of us, any facility manager. It doesn't really matter whether it's outsourced or in-house. I think it's the same. After the financial crisis, and I know in some countries the financial crisis is not completely over yet, but we are finally beginning to see some good economic outlooks, and it looks like we are recovering from the financial crisis we have had. But what has happened in the financial crisis is that we have been too numbers focused. We have been working on for a number of years on tweaking the last few percentages of efficiency out of the contracts that we are running, and to justify the decrease in operating expenditures. That's fair, because there's been a lot of efficiency gains out there, but I strongly believe that we need to rethink our approach to that as we go forward. Of course, not in the sense of becoming less effective. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of efficiency gains out there, but I think we have to be careful of not taking it out of our employees, of the frontliners. We still have to provide the data, we still have to come up with effective planning processes, we still need accurate price points and appropriate benchmarks to stay relevant and document the value we create. But I fear that we have become so focused on optimizing the delivery system, in squeezing another 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 square meters out of our employees, so much so that we sometimes forget what it's all about. And FM is about helping our organizations, the people we serve on a day-to-day basis, to stay competitive and focused. And I think the word serve here is really key. I would even go so far as to claim that we have become an engineer-driven industry. Not there's anything wrong with engineers. The FM industry was built on an engineering mindset and by engineers. But as I said before, we need to continuously improve our processes and optimize our technical capabilities and create efficiency. But I fear that the engineering skills that have made us so successful is no longer enough as we go forward. I think as engineers we are often taught and we are also often educated to think in linear terms, input and output, continuously optimizing processes and production systems and resources. Sometimes talking about our staff as if they are a commodity. Words like, or sentences like, we need more resources, we need to change resource allocations, we need to use more hands. But employees are not commodities. They're not resources. They're people, like you and I and everybody in this room and everybody listening from the live stream. I think we have, over the last decade, forgotten some of the most important aspects of the golden days of service back in the early 80s, mid-80s. And if we just think back for a moment to remind ourselves what this industry is so interesting, and then discuss the true potential of where the improvement lies, I think we will find some interesting aspects. And no matter how technical we have made the facility management or corporate real estate profession, it is still predominantly a people business carried out by people, for people, occupying the facilities we so diligently maintain on a daily level. So let's just share a few sort of aspects on service management and the essence of service. We all share the profound challenge that the majority of the work we do is relatively invisible or unnoticeable to the end users. Often, some of the services that we are providing on a day-to-day level are only noticed when something goes wrong. You don't walk into a room and say how wonderfully clean this room is. Unfortunately, you don't. But you do notice it if it's not cleaned properly. You don't notice the mail that is being distributed. You don't know the technical maintenance that we are doing. You don't notice when we change technical installations like a new HVAC system. And even to some extent, catering, food magically appears in the canteen, or you go outside for food. You don't really think about who are the people behind who are preparing the food. And to make this challenge even bigger, in our line of work, when you have a negative experience, it usually takes between 5 to 7 experiences to make up for that negative experience you've had in the first place. And negative perception is simply just a way of working in our industry. To add further to that, we are generally working with what we called unskilled or semi-skilled labor, working close to or at minimum wages in the countries where we're at. So when you think about it from that end, it's really a challenge to be in the facility management industry. It's not an easy job. And I would really like to put a line under management in facilities management, because I think up until now we have largely focused on the facilities part of FM. We know that many service people really like their jobs and they're doing a good job. And some service companies out there are able to deliver amazing service quality, working under exactly the same conditions as we are on a day-to-day basis. Organizations like Singapore Airlines, Disney, Four Seasons Hotel, Zappos, just to name a few. And why is that? I think it's because perception is everything. And because with the right mindset, service jobs can be extremely rewarding. I think every individual, no matter where we are in the organization and no matter what they do, we need to be respected as individuals, we need to be appreciated, we need to be developed. We don't necessarily need to have a career plan, although many of us will, and many of us attending conferences like this, of course, have careers behind us and have ambitions of the future. Not all of our frontliners have that. Some have, and our task is to grow and nurture those careers. But a lot of our frontliners, they don't have career ambitions. They have other priorities in life. They just want to have a spare time that they may want to focus on. And that's fair enough, but their work still needs to be noticed and their input still needs to be appreciated, what they do. Every person needs to know that their work means something. And words like leadership, motivation, engagement, respect, and development are key ingredients in any successful service model. And even new areas that we have worked a lot with in the industry over the past couple of years, like team spirit, multitasking, multi-skilling of staff, and even job rotation has become extremely important aspects of the service profession. So the real question is, can the engineering culture, the constant drive for efficiency improvement, drive such motivations? I think that's a challenge. I think we need to add to our engineering mindset. I think we need to build on top of our engineering culture. I don't think we should dismiss it. It's very, very good. It's very profound. It's what we have been successful with so far, but we need to build on top of that. We need to add deep people insight, even a psychological understanding to fully unleash the potential of our employees and our staff and the resources that we have available. We need to build purpose into our employees and understand how we need to help customers or the core organization that we are servicing to fulfill its purpose. And FM has a really important part of that, as David was also mentioning before. So let's just take a brief look behind some of the psychological factors about managing service and what drives motivation in people in general. And salary is an important part of that, but it's definitely not the only part of that. And we will still work with around minimum wages as we go forward. So there has to be other elements that we need to look into. This is a quote that we use in my company. I really like this quote. It's made from one of my former colleagues. Every pair of hands comes with a free mind. And I think it points right at where our management challenge is and where the difference is born. It's in the mind. So how does this play? Let's just for a brief moment look at a company outside our industry, or to some extent at least outside our industry, the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain. They have had this slogan for a number of years. We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we can all see the real message here. Ritz-Carlton employees are the exact opposite of commodity service staff. They're ladies and gentlemen, and the way they look at themselves are completely different from the way some of us are looking at commodity service staff. I believe that we as facility managers can learn a lot from the hotel and hospitality industry, and I don't see why we should not treat the employees of an organization, the end users of the facilities, as guests in a hotel. And I actually think that it is going to become the de facto standard in our line of business in only a few years' time. We can see the emergence of new sort of hoteling concepts like WeWork, Liquid Space, Second Home, Lab 59, and some of these types of new models that are emerging. And I think they are going to profoundly change. That's the disruptive technology we have in our line of business. And I think that will profoundly change the industry as we're looking at it at the moment. I know a lot of large organizations are looking into these new upcoming ideas and see how they can utilize them. Companies like IBM and a lot of the banking companies out there. So let's look at the just very, I don't want to go into the theoretical stuff here around psychology, but let's just for a brief moment look at the psychology behind that. As individuals, there are really two psychological factors that drives us. One is that our perceived role is key to how we define ourselves. And then adding some ambition, trying to achieve something meaningful adds purpose and even life quality to the jobs that we are doing. Ambition and the perceived role directly influences the behavior of an individual and the attitudes that this person displays, also when nobody's watching. So in combination, this creates the right sets of behavior, including the attitude that people will meet other people with. So if you treat your service staff like unskilled commodity labor, that's exactly what you will get. And if you treat them like ladies and gentlemen, it really changes the ball game. And that's where I think we need to go as an industry. In my company, we have worked with this for a long time. I wouldn't say we have reached all of our 510,000 employees, but we are on a journey and we are trying to do this in a very structured way. I'll just give you an example. It's really the old notion about building cathedrals or chopping stone, but put into a facility management concept. I think it has to be part of the way we work for all of our recruitment procedures, our communication, our onboarding processes, and even part of our training and educational programs, all the way from frontline up to facility manager, or head of corporate real estate, or head even a CFO role, whoever we are reporting into. Let me just give you a few examples. Are we just repairing the air conditioning, or are we creating a healthy working environment? The understanding of what you do as a repairman is quite different. Another example, are you pushing patients around, or are you helping people to get back on their feet? From a healthcare perspective, again, it's completely different. If you're just pushing patients around, do you then realize the papers on the floor, the spilled liquid or whatever it is, and make sure that somebody takes care of it? Or if you're helping people back on their feet, will you then make sure that it's picked up? Because it does provide a hygiene hazard that can potentially keep people hospitalized for a longer time. It is a profound, differently way of looking at this. And let me just give you an example. This is a good colleague of mine. He's a porter at Royal Liverpool Hospital in the UK. His name is George Wickham. And George is great. And let me just read what he's saying. These are his own words. What's really important in my hospital is that patients and their relatives are always dealt with by a polite and caring staff at a time that can be very stressful and upsetting. As a porter, I'm often the first person a patient or relative meets, so I always try to be friendly and helpful. Some people want to chat, while others prefer silence. That's the skill in my job. I make a difference to their whole experience of the hospital and possibly also how fast they may recover. George is not just pushing people or samples or something around the hospital. And he genuinely believes that if he doesn't come to work in the morning, the hospital will not be able to cope, or at least not as good if he was on work. George has been with this hospital, has been working here for, I think it's 18 years. He has not had a sick day in that period of time. So George is not alone. It's really about making people understand how they can contribute, how they can be part of a winning team, how they can make a difference in their customer lives and in their own lives. And when we do this best as facility managers, really are good on the management part or the leadership part, these kinds of perspectives cascades all the way down to every individual service employee, adding meaning and purpose to service jobs, increasing the quality delivered and the professionalism and integrity of the individual. It eases the need for control and inspection, and it allows for self-management and engagement. And it puts a smile on the face of our employees. And still, in our line of business, a smile is still the shortest distance between people. It's the trademark of good quality. So in conclusion to this, the engineers are still both relevant and important, but the engineering culture with super planning tools, strong drives to optimization and efficiency gains are no longer enough. We need to add a deeper psychological insight and understanding to what drives service employees, and also add an almost anthropological understanding of the organizations we serve. True service is really about understanding fundamentally the shift in organizational behavior. We are, and our people are, close to the end users of the organization. If we do this right, we would know more about the people visiting our offices or factories than the sales department. We will know more about the morale and behavior of our staff than the HR department. And this kind of information can be extremely valuable to the C-suite as we go on and work with the changes and the cultural journeys that each of our organizations is on. And this brings me to the next situation, which we have experienced a lot where I come from, and I'm sure some of you have also experienced it in your organizations, is that when you have a contract where all the SLAs and KPIs are met, but when you then talk to customers and even to the end users, they're not that satisfied. And why is that? I think it's sometimes because our measures and our metrics doesn't truly take into consideration some of the cultural aspects that we are part of in working with this. And it's hard because we are, of course, serving different departments, different organizations, maybe even different sites around the organization, and you'll find a lot of different subcultures like that. But when we do it right, it can make a profound difference. And if we allow our people the time to be professionals and give them the training to be professionals, I think that can actually make a lot of difference to that. So it's not only about running around being enormously efficient, but sometimes lifting your head and have a dialogue with the people around you in order to add to the service experience. Let me give you an example of this, and again, this is got just the old-fashioned example of what are you doing? Are you building cathedrals? Are you chopping stone? This is Francesca Letall. She's front of house at Standard Chartered Bank in the UK. Standard Bank was expecting a very important delegation from China to come to their offices and meet. And Francesca decided to do a little bit extra. She took it upon herself to look into Chinese etiquette. She went online studied a little bit about Chinese culture and Chinese etiquette. So the day when the delegation arrived, she just asked all her team to skip the high heel shoes, tone down the color of the lipstick. She even asked all her team to wear red necklaces and that type of thing, accessories, because in China, red is a lucky color. And when she chose the room to put this delegation into having a meeting with the banking officials, she chose room number 8. And in China, 8 is a lucky number. I would love to say this because we got great managers, she did that, but it's not. But it's an example of an employee who knows the bigger purpose, the bigger perspective on what she is doing. And I think it's a wonderful example of a service moment that actually adds to the strategy of the organization. Imagine if we have employees like Francesca in all our teams, what a difference we could make to the organizations we serve. I mentioned earlier on that 80 to 90% of the services we provide goes unnoticed. That's by tradition. There's no rule that says that, and it's up to us. And we can see a profound difference when service gets a face, and even better, a name, and when we make it visible. When we put our service staff in front of our users and make them become service ambassadors, let them interact, let them talk to people, let them create personal relationships with people, it changes. And we can see the number of complaints dropping dramatically, not because we have changed the quality of service we have provided, we've just given it a name and a face and an interlock. It's quite interesting what some of these psychological factors can do for us and the services we're providing. But as you can see, there's still room for just one, and I have to hurry up now, one skill before we have completed the picture, and that is the facility manager as a visionary. And as you know, how can we tap into what is happening in the world around us? We need to understand the strategic challenges our organizations are facing, the organizations we serve, and how we as facility managers and corporate real estate folks can add and contribute to the strategy development and the journey and the realization of the organizational goals that the companies we are in are aspiring to achieve. So let me just quickly run through some of the statistics we have in the marketplace. 66% of employees would consider a pay cut in exchange for a more flexible working environment. Today, this year, the number of mobile workers have reached 37% of the world's total workforce. Let me see if I can move on here. Yep. This is interesting. Over 55% of desks are empty in our offices at any given point in time. Talking about making our employees run 2 to 3% faster, how much efficiency can you drive out of that compared to what kind of motivation that would give you? And then we have an asset where about 50% of the space are not used. Why don't we spend our time optimizing that space and making smarter working environments where we could utilize the space that we have available to us instead of making crappy jobs from our frontliners? Corporation needs alternative workspaces to promote corporate culture and foster collaboration, knowledge sharing, flexibility, speed to market, and productivity. And we are in the center of that. Bringing your ideas to the table, becoming innovative, using new technology is going to be a key focal point for any FM organization out there. Using new technologies, new methods, new system, and especially new people engagement standards to bring it all together in an integrated approach. That's important. I talked about, in the beginning, the more sort of rational part of the skill set. And let me just bring a rational point to what I've said so far. Why should we be doing it? What's the potential reward? I started off by talking about service resources as commodities, and if we stick to that line of thinking, there'll be a pretty linear relation to how many hours that are put into a contract or to put into the work that we do, because at the end of the day, that's what we do. We manage a lot of hours, and through the facility management processes, we create value out of those hours. But when we get it right, when fully weighing in the psychological understanding of our employees and the environments that they are part of, when we truly become part of the culture that we are servicing, driving user satisfaction on the terms of the users and not only on terms of the KPIs and the efficiency agenda, even becoming strategic partners who are helping to drive a successful change agenda towards truly utilizing the potential of people and facilities, what happens are that we can create a lot more value out of the same amount of hours. And I think that's the true vision of facility management in a 2020 scenario, and that is also the true point of service management 3.0. Thank you for your attention.